Oklahoma fans, you should be up. You've won a fourth consecutive Big 12 championship, and more than that, you've punched another ticket to the college football playoff. Texas fans, I know you should be proud of your team. You're finally back in the race in the Big 12, but obviously down. You had a chance to win today. Did not win the Big 12 championship. And, oh yeah, Ohio State fans, you should really be down for the second consecutive year. You're going to be the first team out. All right, let's run it down. Oklahoma wins 39-27. Hard-fought game, went down to the final few minutes. So Oklahoma didn't dominate. It didn't make this a lockdown decision by the committee, but based on their avenging a loss at a neutral site against Texas, also looking better on defense than they've looked in weeks, playing reasonably decent defense, and considering that Texas is considered, they're definitely not for sure, but considered a better team than Northwestern by some degree, then you would think that the Ohio State effort tonight against Northwestern would have to be astronomical for the Buckeyes to overcome the Purdue loss. So Oklahoma, Texas for the Big 12 championship here. All right. Ellinger and company were sharp early. He missed on a couple throws, but they still completed the touchdown drive out of the gate 7-0. He hit Colin Johnson and Lil Jordan Humphrey, and that was one of the keys to the game that we outlined all week, that both Lil Jordan Humphrey and Colin Johnson would be huge in this game, and certainly CJ was. 8 catches for $177, and the touchdowns to start us out at 7-0. Chris Boyd was grabbing the face mask far too often. He had 3 penalties on one drive, 2 of them face masks that led to a field goal. But the Texas defense looked very strong in the first quarter. The first couple drives for Oklahoma, they either stopped the Sooners or they held them to field goals. And we had a 7-3 game and also a 7-6 game. Key play on one of the early drives was Oklahoma moved it all the way down to the half-yard line, and Gary Johnson, suspended for last week's game, came back, leading tackler for Texas, and he completely stuffed Trey Sermon on a 3rd and goal play at the half-yard line to force the field goal to make it 7-3. Okay, Texas had its way in the first quarter. Offensively, I don't know why they're throwing a double pass, why they're going to trick plays when they're moving the ball without trick plays. So they go to a double pass on a first down. They don't get it. They put themselves behind the sticks and basically killed their drive. So that didn't make any sense to me. Definitely, again, Boyd on a beautiful pass break up in the back of the end zone, despite some of his penalties and issues on the field with that. He made the strip on Hollywood Brown, who was hauling in a touchdown reception, and he just knocked it loose. And again, Oklahoma had to settle for the field goal at 7-6. Neither team was running the ball well in this game, and that's a mainstay of the Sooners' attack is running the football. And they were held to 3.2 yards per carry in this one. Texas at one point went for it in the first half on a 4th and 4. Considering the field position, considering the type of game this was, I thought that was a calculated risk that made sense. They converted when Colin Johnson caught the ball and streaked down the sideline for a big gainer. When Motley missed the tackle, they go down to the 15-yard line. Texas was very successful in setting up the run formation to the left, something that was pointed out throughout the broadcast that they had burned at Oklahoma on in the first game, but they countered it by running to the right off the formation where they set up the run to the left. Ellinger scores the touchdown. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. It was 14-6. You had a number of plays in which the Texas defense would bend but would not break, and they had a number of plays behind the sticks that were disruptive, plays behind the line of scrimmage that held down Kyler Murray and company. Bledsoe had Eric Bledsoe with a sack to stop an Texas drive, as I'm trying to make my way through these notes here. 14-13 game as CeeDee Lamb caught the ball on the post play and got behind Caden Stearns to make it 14-13. Ellinger converted a number of first downs, as he typically does with his legs and his right shoulder, and lowering the boom on safeties and linebackers as he converted a number of first downs. A bad punt, though, set up the Oklahoma final drive of the first half, in which they made it 14-13 earlier. Then they drove it down the field. So Texas was in position, great position, to salt away a lead at halftime. They punted, and Oklahoma takes over. They've got a long field. They don't have much time. But with that offense, probably the best offense in college football, they made it work. Back-to-back catches by Nick Baskine, who only had 4 catches coming into the game, and he caught back-to-back for 44 yards. And then you had CeeDee Lamb, that great catch along the sideline. Don't know how he hung onto the ball and got the foot down. And that led to a Kyler Murray touchdown to Grant Calcaterra to make it 20-14 at the break. So the Sooners finally got the offense kicked into gear, and they were off and running. Awful pass interference call on Brandon Jones. Both players, the wide receiver and Brandon Jones, were hand fighting. If anything, the wide receiver pushed him off. Awful call by the official. Leads to an Oklahoma touchdown. They go up 27-14. That was the 9th Texas penalty. I believe the Longhorns finished with 13 or 14 penalties in this game. And so in addition to Oklahoma running up about 550 to 600 yards of total offense, they were handed about 150 yards in penalties on top of that. Colin Johnson, again, made 3 huge plays on one drive, including the 27-yard touchdown catch. Beautiful pass by Ellinger. The defensive back was outstretched, actually had great coverage, and Johnson just outleaped him for the ball. 27-21 Oklahoma. Ellinger comes back. They drive it back down the field, so they're down by 13 at 27-14, but 2 consecutive Texas stops, and they come back with back-to-back touchdown drive to make it 27-all. They missed the PAT that time, and at this point in the game, Hollywood Brown goes out with an injury. He was seen later in the game on crutches, so that doesn't look good, but we'll see what the diagnosis is after the game. Obviously, Oklahoma's #1 receiving threat downfield on the sideline for the fourth quarter. 27-all game. So Oklahoma drives at the beginning of the fourth quarter. They get the field goal to make it 30-27. Huge play in the game. Back-to-back plays here where CeeDee Lamb makes about 3 Texas defenders look silly, leaves them on the field, goes all the way down to the 5-yard line, looks like he's going to take it in for the touchdown, and Gary Johnson is hustling all the way down the field, strips him from behind to force the fumble at the Texas 5-yard line to hold the score at 30-27. So that looked huge at the time, but only 2 plays later, Sam Ellinger caught off the corner for a sack and a safety as Trey Brown comes off the corner. So he's playing somewhere between the corner position and the end position in the slot, and he comes off the corner and nobody blocks him, and he blindsides Ellinger for the safety to make it 32-27. So what that obviously did was provide the 2 points, but also flip the possession. And Oklahoma gets the ball back. They run it out to the 35 on the kick, and they've got the ball back and a 5-point lead instead of Texas with the ball with a 3-point lead. And Oklahoma drives for the touchdown that ultimately sealed the game, 39-27. Great catch by Calcaterra, who had 3 receptions for 2 touchdowns. And so you've got a 39-27 game. There was a glimmer of hope a couple times for Texas late in the game. We're under 2 minutes, 39-27. Lil Jordan Humphrey gets loose for the touchdown on the kick return. Holding Texas brought back, legitimate penalty. And it wasn't late in the run. It actually was involved in the run when Humphrey sprung it through the crease. And legitimate penalty there, called back, and Texas had to set up at the 20-yard line. They moved it down the field quickly. They got it down inside the Oklahoma 20. Game that changed everything, the play that changed everything was the Colin Johnson with all the remarkable catches he made. This would have been outstanding, but couldn't quite hang on to the ball. It was thrown off his fingertips. Had about 3 chances at the ball as he was falling to the ground. Didn't come up with it. Very next play, Ellinger miscommunicates with Lil Jordan Humphrey, and he's running to the end zone. Ellinger expects him to curl back for the comeback route, and they miscommunicate. Disconnection there. Trey Norwood with the pick off the deflection. There's your ball game. Texas could have scored there with about 50 seconds left to play. Got within a few points. Gone for the onside kick, but it was not to be. There's your final. 39-27. Was Oklahoma impressive? For the most part, yeah. The defense played better than it has typically. The offense was great in spurts, as they typically are. They beat one of the 15 best teams in the country, and they didn't blow them out by any stretch. They didn't dominate them. They didn't really outplay them except in spurts, but they were the better team for most of the game and won it by 12. It was basically a one-possession game the entire way. So Oklahoma wins 39-27. They have punched their ticket to the college football playoff, considering the college football playoff selections rankings to date and what they think about Oklahoma versus Ohio State, despite the Buckeyes' better wins, despite the Buckeyes playing in a better conference. They've got the awful loss, and they play a lesser team in Northwestern in the Big Ten championship game. So there you have it. Oklahoma most likely in the playoff, awaiting the SEC championship game as well. Georgia and Alabama getting underway right now. Would love to see your comments right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We'll see you next time.